Once upon a time, in a land of ancient kings and swirling prophecies, there lived a powerful ruler named Astyages. He was the king of the Medes, and his word was law. He had everything a king could possibly want: vast lands, overflowing treasuries, and subjects who bowed at his feet. But despite all this power, King Astyages was a man haunted by his dreams. One night, he had a terrifying vision. He dreamt that from his daughter Mandane a great vine grew. This vine spread and spread until it covered all of Asia, casting a shadow over his own mighty kingdom. It was a dream that dripped with meaning, and it filled the king's heart with a cold, creeping dread. Haunted by this powerful image, Astyages immediately sent for his wise men, the Magi. They listened intently to the king's tale, their faces grim. Their interpretation was clear and chilling. The dream, they explained, was a prophecy. It meant that his daughter's son would one day rise up to overthrow him and take his throne. This unborn grandchild would become a king far greater than he had ever been, ruling over all the lands he could see and beyond. For Astyages, a man who clung to his power above all else, this was not just a warning, it was a death sentence for his reign. He decided right then and there that this child could never be allowed to live. When his daughter Mandane gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy, the king's fear turned into a cruel and decisive plan. He summoned his most trusted courtier, a man named Harpagus. With a heart as cold as stone, Astyages gave a terrible order. Harpagus was to take the infant, this innocent baby named Cyrus, into the wild mountains and leave him there to die. The king believed that by eliminating the child, he could cheat fate and erase the prophecy from existence. He thought that power and a single ruthless act could defy the future that his own dreams had shown him. It was a dark plan, born from the deepest corners of a tyrant's fear. Harpagus took the small child, wrapped snugly in his royal blankets, but his own heart was heavy with turmoil. He was a loyal servant to his king, but the thought of killing a helpless baby, a child of royal blood, was simply too much to bear. It was a monstrous task, an act that felt profoundly wrong. As he walked towards the desolate mountains, the baby's innocent face looked up at him, completely unaware of the grim fate that had been planned. Harpagus knew he could not do it. He could not be the man who extinguished such a small, bright flame of life. He had to find another way, a way to obey his king without staining his hands with such an unforgivable crime. As Harpagus wrestled with his conscience, a clever idea began to form in his mind. He knew of a humble royal shepherd named Mithridates, whose wife had just given birth to a stillborn child. This poor couple was deep in grief, their hearts broken by their loss. Harpagus saw a solution, a sad but perfect opportunity to save one life while honoring another. He rode quickly to the shepherd's simple home in the foothills of the mountains. He presented the royal baby, little Cyrus, to the shepherd and his wife. He explained the king's cruel command and then made a proposal. They could switch the babies. They could give their own lost child a royal burial, telling everyone it was the prince, while raising Cyrus as their very own son. The shepherd and his wife, their eyes still filled with tears for their own loss, looked at the living, breathing baby in Harpagus's arms. It felt like a sign from the gods themselves. To raise a child, even if he was not their own, was a chance to fill the terrible emptiness in their home. They agreed to the plan without hesitation. They carefully dressed their stillborn son in the prince's fine clothes, and left him in the remote spot where Cyrus was meant to die. Then they took Cyrus into their home, into their hearts, and loved him as if he were the child they had just lost. They kept the secret buried deep within them, a dangerous truth that could cost them their lives if it were ever discovered by the paranoid king. So the boy who was born to be a king grew up as a simple shepherd's son. He knew nothing of his royal blood or the prophecy that swirled around his destiny. He spent his days in the sun-drenched fields and rugged hills, learning to tend the flocks and protect them from predators. He grew strong, quick-witted, and confident. He wasn't surrounded by the silks and servants of a palace, but by the honest toil and simple truths of country life. He learned about courage not from soldiers in gleaming armor, but from facing down a wolf to protect his sheep. He learned about justice not from royal courts, but from making sure every animal was fed and cared for fairly. Even as a young boy, Cyrus had a natural air of authority about him. The other children in the village were drawn to his charisma and his innate sense of fairness. In their games they would often play king and court, and they always chose Cyrus to be their king. He would preside over their small disputes with a wisdom that seemed far beyond his years. issuing judgments that were both firm and kind. He had a leader's spirit, a king's heart, that could not be hidden by a shepherd's simple tunic. It was as if destiny was bubbling just below the surface, waiting for the right moment to burst forth and reveal the incredible truth of who he really was. The secret of Cyrus's identity could not stay hidden forever. The turning point came, as it so often does, during one of the children's games. One day, the son of a wealthy and important nobleman joined their play. This boy, used to getting his own way, refused to obey an order from Cyrus, the boy king of their game. Cyrus, taking his role very seriously, ordered the other children to seize the nobleman's son and punish him for his disobedience. The boy went home crying, complaining to his father about the insolent shepherd's son who had dared to have him whipped. The nobleman was furious. How dare a commoner lay a hand on his child? He stormed straight to King Astyages to demand justice. King Astyages, annoyed at this petty disturbance, summoned the young shepherd boy to the palace. He expected to see a frightened, ordinary child. Instead, he saw a boy who stood before him with a calm and fearless gaze. The king demanded to know why he, a mere shepherd's son, had dared to punish the son of a nobleman. Cyrus answered with a clarity and confidence that stunned everyone in the room. He explained that in their game, he had been chosen as king, and the other boy had broken the rules. A king, he argued, must enforce his laws, or his authority means nothing. He spoke not with arrogance, but with a simple, unshakable logic. As Astyages listened, a chill ran down his spine. There was something unnervingly familiar about this boy. His noble bearing, his confident speech, and even the features of his face reminded the king of someone. They reminded him of his own daughter Mandane. The king's mind raced back to the prophecy, to the baby he had ordered killed so many years ago. He looked at the boy's age, and the pieces of the puzzle began to click into place with terrifying certainty. He immediately sent for Harpagus and the shepherd Mithridates, and under the pressure of the king's fury, the whole truth finally came tumbling out. The prophecy had not been avoided. The boy standing before him was his grandson, Cyrus. The king was filled with a complex mix of emotions. His initial rage was immense, especially towards Harpagus for his betrayal. But he also felt a strange sense of relief, believing that since Cyrus had been king in a children's game, the prophecy had been fulfilled in a harmless way. He decided to spare the boy's life once more. He sent Cyrus away from the shepherd's home, back to his true parents in the neighboring land of Persia. Cyrus was finally reunited with his mother and father, who had believed him dead for all these years. He was no longer a shepherd boy playing at being a king. He was a true prince, now fully aware of his royal blood and the incredible destiny that awaited him. As Cyrus grew into a man in his true homeland of Persia, he never forgot the lessons he had learned as a shepherd. He understood the lives of ordinary people, their struggles and their hopes. He also saw that his people, the Persians, were ruled by his grandfather, the Median king Astyages, who was becoming more cruel and tyrannical with each passing year. The memory of how the king had ordered him killed as a baby was never far from his mind. He knew that such a man could not be trusted to rule justly. The Persian nobles, tired of being under the thumb of the Medes, saw in Cyrus a leader they could finally rally behind. They saw his strength, his charisma, and his deep connection to his people. The time for rebellion was at hand. Cyrus, now a powerful and respected young leader, began to unite the Persian tribes. He was a brilliant strategist and an inspiring commander, and the people flocked to his banner, eager for freedom. King Astyages, hearing of his grandson's uprising, was enraged. He had spared Cyrus's life twice, and this was how he was repaid. He gathered his massive Median army to crush the rebellion, but Astyages made a fatal mistake. He appointed Harpagus, the very man he had once punished so cruelly for disobeying the order to kill Cyrus, as one of his main generals. Harpagus had never forgiven the king, and he saw his chance for revenge. During a decisive battle, Harpagus and a large part of the Median army defected. They switched their allegiance right on the battlefield and joined forces with Cyrus. The tide turned in an instant. The rest of the Median army was thrown into confusion and was quickly defeated. King Astyages was captured and brought before the grandson he had tried so hard to destroy. Everyone expected Cyrus to execute his grandfather in a brutal display of power, just as any other king of that time would have done. It was the moment of ultimate victory, the chance to finally repay cruelty with cruelty. The world held its breath, waiting to see what this new conqueror would do. But Cyrus was different. He looked at the defeated, trembling old man before him and saw not just a tyrant, but his own grandfather. Instead of ordering his death, Cyrus showed him mercy. He treated Astyages with respect and allowed him to live out the rest of his days in comfort, though without any power. This single act of clemency sent a shockwave across the ancient world. It was a completely new kind of leadership. Cyrus had shown that a ruler could be strong without being cruel, victorious without being vengeful. He had won not just a kingdom, but the hearts and minds of both his own people and his former enemies. This was the true beginning of the Persian Empire, founded on a revolutionary act of mercy. With the Medes and Persians now united under his rule, Cyrus set his sights on building a truly great empire. But he wanted to build it differently. He went on to conquer other powerful kingdoms, like Lydia and its fabulously wealthy king Croesus. Yet, with each victory he repeated his astonishing pattern of mercy. He treated defeated kings not as prisoners to be paraded in chains but as advisors, respecting their knowledge and experience. His reputation grew and spread throughout the ancient world. He was known not as a terrifying destroyer, but as a just and fair ruler, a liberator who brought stability and peace wherever he went. His empire was expanding, not just through military might, but through the power of his remarkable character. His greatest challenge, and his most famous victory, was the mighty city of Babylon. Babylon was the largest and most magnificent city in the world at that time. It was protected by enormous walls that were said to be impenetrable. Its ruler, Nabonidus, was unpopular with his own people. He had neglected their traditions and their powerful god, Marduk. The people of Babylon lived in fear and uncertainty, and they had heard the stories of the approaching Persian king, the one who treated conquered peoples with respect and kindness. They began to hope that this new conqueror might be a better alternative to their own neglectful king. Cyrus, ever the brilliant strategist, knew that a direct assault on Babylon's walls would be a long and bloody affair. So he devised an ingenious plan. The great Euphrates River flowed directly through the center of the city, passing under its massive walls. Cyrus ordered his engineers to dig canals upstream to divert the flow of the river, lowering the water level significantly. One night, during a great citywide festival when the Babylonian guards were distracted and celebrating, Cyrus's army simply waded through the shallow riverbed, right under the walls, and into the heart of the unsuspecting city. Babylon was conquered without a single major battle, its gates opened from within by a people eager for change. When Cyrus entered the city, there was no looting, no destruction, and no violence, which was unheard of for that era. The people of Babylon welcomed him not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. Cyrus went straight to the temple of Marduk, the god their own king had ignored, and paid his respects. He declared that he was the chosen one of Marduk, sent to restore justice and order to their land. He did not impose his own Persian gods or customs on them. Instead, he promised to protect their traditions, repair their temples, and allow them to live and worship as they pleased. It was a revolutionary approach to conquest, one that won him the genuine loyalty of the Babylonian people. After his peaceful conquest of Babylon, Cyrus issued a declaration that would echo through history. He had his new policies recorded on a small clay cylinder, written in the traditional Babylonian cuneiform script. This object, now known as the Cyrus cylinder, was buried in the foundations of the city walls as a permanent record for the gods and for future generations. It was not a boastful account of his military victories, which was typical for kings of the time. Instead, it was a statement of his principles, a blueprint for how he intended to rule his vast multicultural empire. It was a document that outlined a new vision for humanity. The text on the cylinder is truly extraordinary. In it, Cyrus presents himself as the chosen of Babylon's god, Marduk, restoring peace and order to the city. He details his policies of mercy and respect. He declares that he has returned all the captured religious statues to their original temples from Babylon to other cities in his new empire. Most importantly, he proclaims that he will allow all the peoples who had been forcibly deported and enslaved by the Babylonians to return to their homelands. He even promises to help them rebuild their ruined cities and their sacred places of worship. This was a radical departure from the brutal practices of other ancient empires. This decree had a profound impact on many different groups, but none more so than the Jewish people. They had been captured by the previous Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar, decades earlier. Their holy city of Jerusalem had been destroyed, and they had been forced to live in exile in Babylon. They had dreamed of returning home for generations. Cyrus's proclamation was the answer to their prayers. He not only allowed them to go back to Judah, but he also gave them funds from the royal treasury to rebuild their sacred temple in Jerusalem. This incredible act of kindness is celebrated in the Bible, where Cyrus is praised as a righteous ruler and an instrument of God. Because of these remarkable declarations, many historians today consider the Cyrus Cylinder to be the world's first charter of human rights. It lays out the principles of religious tolerance, the abolition of forced labor, and the freedom for people to live where they choose. It established the idea that an empire could be strong and stable, not by forcing everyone to be the same, but by respecting their differences. Cyrus understood that people are more loyal to a ruler who protects their culture and their dignity than one who tries to crush it. The little clay cylinder is a testament to his incredible wisdom and his groundbreaking vision for a more just and tolerant world. Cyrus the Great spent the rest of his life consolidating and governing the enormous empire he had built. It was the largest empire the world had ever seen, stretching from the Mediterranean Sea all the way to the Indus River. To manage such a vast and diverse realm, he introduced brilliant innovations. He established a system of provinces, each governed by a satrap or governor, who was loyal to him but had the authority to manage local affairs. This allowed for efficient administration while still respecting local customs and traditions. He also created the world's first reliable and wide-ranging postal service, the Royal Road, which allowed messages and officials to travel quickly across the empire, knitting its disparate parts together. Throughout his reign, Cyrus remained true to the principles he had established at the very beginning. He ruled with a light touch, respecting the languages, religions, and cultures of all the different peoples under his care. He did not see diversity as a weakness but as a strength. He understood that a peaceful empire was a prosperous one. By promoting trade, building infrastructure, and ensuring justice, he created a period of unprecedented peace and stability known as the Pax Persica, or the Persian Peace. He was admired not only by his own subjects but also by his rivals, including the ancient Greeks, who wrote about him with great admiration, holding him up as the model of an ideal ruler. Even in death, Cyrus remained a figure of profound humility. After a long and successful reign, he was not buried in a massive, ostentatious pyramid or a sprawling temple complex. Instead, his final resting place was a simple yet elegant stone tomb in his beloved capital city of Pasargadae. The tomb was modest, a small house-like chamber on a stepped stone platform, reflecting the humble character of the man who lay within. For centuries, a simple inscription was said to have marked the site, a message that perfectly captured his spirit. "O man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, for I know you will come, I am Cyrus who won the Persians their empire. Do not therefore begrudge me this little earth that covers my body." The legacy of Cyrus the Great is truly immense. He was more than just a conqueror. He was a visionary who changed the very concept of what it meant to be a king. He showed the world that true power lies not in fear and brutality, but in justice, compassion, and respect for human dignity. His ideas on governance and human rights were centuries ahead of their time, and have influenced leaders and thinkers from Alexander the Great to the founding fathers of the United States. Cyrus the Great remains a timeless symbol of enlightened leadership, a legend whose story continues to inspire us with its powerful lessons about how to build a better, kinder, and more just world for everyone.